Well, it's only been a law for a few minutes now, a few dozen minutes, an hour, 2 hours, something like that. But here's something we already know about Donald Trump's big reconciliation bill. It is one of the most unpopular acts of Congress in recent history. This is not hyperbole, and this is me not just, articulating my hunches. That is according to data gathered by Georgetown political scientist Christopher Warshaw. Warshaw found that Trump's big, beautiful bill is the second most unpopular piece of legislation of any kind in Congress since 1990. You can see there that the only bill that was more unpopular than Trump's attempted repeal of Obamacare back in 2017, which also would have slashed Medicaid and cut taxes on high earners. That, of course, failed. The bill that Trump has just signed into law today.
Dear Democrats, if you've watched this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and write your thoughts in the comments.
Is less popular than Republicans' previous tax cuts for rich folks. Less popular even than the 2008 bank bailout, which is actually genuinely shocking to me, or the Affordable Care Act when they were passed. Also kind of surprising. I gotta think that's not great news for Republicans. And the thing about it is, it's not just because people don't know what's in it. The deeper you dive into the polling and people who know what's in it, the worse it gets. G. Elliott Morris is an independent data-driven journalist. He's author of Strength in Numbers Substack. He just worked at 538. In a new post over at Strength in Numbers, he examines the data on Trump's one big unpopular bill, and he joins me now. Elliott, it's great to have you on. I've been a longtime fan of your work. I read your Substack. I really like the stuff you do, so it's great to have you. How do we do apples to apples comparisons of popularity of legislation over time?
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Happy 4th. Auspicious occasion for talking about this. The way we do this is just by compiling the polling data, right? I mean, the polls are the same, roughly speaking, in methodology over time. I mean, if we have a bill that is, as that chart shows, 23 points underwater today, and there's another bill that's like 30 points underwater historically, the way that we can attach meaning to that is by looking at what happened after Congress or a president passed something really unpopular. So if we go back to those examples, right, after 2017, when the GOP tries to pass a historic, at that point, rollback of Medicaid and passage of tax cuts, you get the 2018 wave election, right? After 2009, when the ACA passed, so that also was unpopular at the time. It's popular now, but at the time it's very unpopular. You get the 2010 wave against the Democrats. So we look like these polls aren't happening in isolation, right? When we say something is 23 points unpopular, there are some stakes attached to that, and the historical examples bear that out.
One thing that I think is interesting to consider. So in the case of the ACA repeal, right, it fails. And I think there's a sense in which I think it may have actually politically redounded to Republicans' benefit. I think actually passing it might have led to bigger losses in the midterms. But how much we think of public opinion in response to these bills being about what happens afterwards, or do they become kind of like signifiers for a party's priorities, if that makes sense? Like it's the thing attached to them that independent of, oh, I haven't seen Medicaid cuts in my backyard yet because they're time delayed in the bill.
Right. I mean, I was going to say the way that you know that Republicans are scared about the effects of the bill is because they time delayed the rollback of Medicaid
exactly.
and food stamps and assistance. Like they know that there are costs to this. The polls bear that out. And, there's I think there's some parts of the bill, obviously, that are signaling, and part of the way that Republicans probably convinced themselves, especially in the Senate, to pass this is that it's offering lots of signals to their voters, and it's aligning the signals that they're sending with the symbols from Donald Trump, their party leader, as well. We can't discount that fact. It's not just like politicians looking at the people to see what they should do. It's also trying to balance their priorities with the president. And so you should not think of the bill as just a reflection of priorities of the Republican masses. It's also a reflection of the prioritization of Republican elites above those masses. It's probably yes. A lot more a prioritization of the masses, the elites than the masses, just based on the data.
Yeah, one of the things you point out, and because things can be unpopular and then get more popular later. The Affordable Care Act being a signature example of that. It was underwater when it passed. It's now very hard to repeal because it has become quite popular. And also, it's not like people pay that close of attention to the legislative details. One of the things you note today, which I've been following too, is the bill's net rating is generally worse the more specific a pollster gets about what it does. On average, across pollsters and methods, 31% of Americans support it, 54% oppose it. Net rating 23, to put it mildly, absolutely abysmal. But when you start asking about the specific provisions, Elliot, those are not polling well either. It's not like there's a misapprehension of what the bill does that's driving the bad top line number.
Yeah, then there's a disconnect that we need to think about here, that your viewers need to take into account, a disconnect between what pollsters are asking and what people are hearing, and also what the policy is actually doing. So if you ask people, should we, in isolation, kick 14 million people off of Medicaid, then they would say no. And in our polling strength in numbers, we find about 54% of people say that they'd rather the government roll back tax cuts so that they can pay for these programs rather than the other way around.
G. Elliott Morris, thank you so much for your time.
If you've watched the video up to this point, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and write your thoughts in the comments.
Before the hour was even up, they were already marketing Trump's massive bipartisan bill, which is not bipartisan at all, but rather a straightforward robbery plan, as a success story. It has already become one of the most hated laws in history. I'm not kidding. We have data from Christopher Warshaw at Georgetown. This law is the second worst, most unpopular law to pass Congress since 1990. So his number one, take a guess, Trump again. In 2017, he tried to scrape Obamacare, slash Medicaid, and cut taxes for the wealthy. The public hated it, and Congress didn't pass it. So what did he do now? The same old tune, rerun. Go ahead and laugh, but swallow hard while you laugh, because this time he signed it. So who do you think will foot the bill? It won't be me, that's for sure. But the middle class, low-income Americans, the people who are supposed to be great again. Here's your classic Trump move. Here's the funny thing, this law isn't that complicated. Once you know the details, it's not something you dislike. On the contrary, once you learn the details, your hatred doubles. G. Elliott Morris says that when Paul asked, "Do you know the contents of the law?" support drops even further. That's normal. Who wants millions of people to be kicked off Medicaid? Who wants the rich to create a tax haven? Well, I don't care. I'm not a billionaire. Maybe you're not either. But these guys disregarded their own voters and did this for the benefit of their own elite circle, their Wall Street buddies. Remember 2017? They didn't dismantle Obamacare. Now they are pushing through something even more insidious. And they call this guy the people's man. Trump, come on, the man of the people, the man who's draining the people's pockets. And now I ask you, what do you think will happen to a party that does something like this in the 2026 elections? History says they'll get a slap in the face. In 2010, Democrats lost seats in waves because of Obama's healthcare reform. And then what happened? The ACA became permanent. People saw its benefits. They loved it. And now no one can touch it.